guys, listen, I just really wanted to quickly jump in and let you know what took place very briefly. Now, I know you've seen the title and you're probably wondering what actually happened there. So I was home alone filming, and this particular movement, paranormal activity, actually took place. Now, we've lived in this property now for approximately 3 years, and we've always had noises, little creaks, things go missing, and we've always actually tried to ignore it. I know I certainly have. Anyway, upon editing the video, we noticed something that made a sudden noise, and it literally freaked me out. I mean, I literally screamed out when I spotted it, and it is still freaking me out. I didn't sleep very well that night. Take a look for yourself. If you don't spot it for yourself, go to the end of the video and it's actually slowed down so you can see. So please leave a comment of what you think actually took place there. But we definitely caught this paranormal activity on film. So I'd look forward to sharing your thoughts. Enjoy the video. Bye-bye. Okay guys, so today we're going to continue from last week's tutorial. So we're going to make the pillows for our quilt. So remember, we made the jelly roll charm quilt. Yes, that was it, jelly roll charm quilt. The week goes by so quickly, sometimes you just kind of lose track. And we had some blocks left over, so this is what we're going to make our pillows from today. Yay! So that's really exciting, and I hope you are excited about it as well. So we're going to do them, we're going to quilt them actually, so I think that's going to look really nice. And we'll do a little bit of free motion quilting together, and talk about a little bit of patterns, etc., and what we're going to do, the whole thing. And then we're going to use the envelope back for the cushions. All right, so that is our project today, and I know you're going to enjoy it. So we're going to make two. One we're going to piece together, and the other one we're just going to use 4 of the blocks to make a 17-inch square. All right, so from some of the other fabric as well, I had some white left over, so I wanted to piece one again and use up the fabric as well for that. And I like using up the fabric. I think it's so important to do that. Many times we've stashed the fabric away for another project, and I think using up the project for the balance of the project, the fabric, sorry, for the project you're making it for, is so good, and it's a creative way of getting into that habit and doing that. So I would urge you to do that on a regular basis. And also, if you're giving your quilts away as gift, many times the person you're giving it to don't have any matching pillows, and so when you give them the cushions or the pillows to go with it, it complements the look. And I think it's such a wholesome gift altogether, and I think just really get into that habit. We already have too much waste product of fabric filling up landfill already, so we don't need any more contribution to that. So that's me, end of the teaching moment. There I go again. So here we go. So what we're going to do first of all is to take 2 of our blocks and put them front sides together and stitch it. Now, don't worry about using a 1/4-inch seam. If you want to use a scant seam, is entirely down to you. This is not a quilt, this is a cushion, so you can just stitch normally. However, if you do want to make a 17-inch square for a larger cushion form, then I would say definitely try and remain with that. So I think that's the best thing for you to do. If you wanted to then obviously make the cushion size smaller, I think to 14-inch, which is a standard cushion, then obviously you'll need to trim the squares down. All right, but I'm sure you can handle that on your own because you're already fantastic. So there you go. So what we're going to do, as I said, front sides together, lay them out how exactly you want, and I will show you how I'm doing mine so you can do it as I have done it, because I know sometimes it's good to have a visual example so you can work your way from that, and then because you're given that example, you can then change it into a way that you want, and that helps you to be a lot more clearer in terms of what you want to do. So it brings clarity to you having that visual example. So I will do that for you. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so this is what we're working with today. So I have my 4 blocks here. So I'm going to use 4 for the first one, and then I'm going to use the other for the second. I'm not sure if I'll use the 2 for the second or just the 1 at the moment. Okay, so this is going to be a 17-inch square pillow casing or cushion casing for a pillow form. Now, you could lay this out any way you see fit to do. So you can put all of your squares, your white squares in the middle, all right? Or you can change it around. Okay, so you have the 2 squares there, and 2 squares at the end. Or if you wanted, you can turn it around. And I haven't actually preconceived these. I'm just literally doing these as I am with you at the moment. Yeah, and you can do that, or turn that way, and then you use all of the jelly rolls in that way, showing, because obviously remember we made these strips here using a jelly roll, and these were our whites that I cut from yardage. Right, so you know what, I'm kind of liking this one. I like the sort of weave sort of look at you, it's appearing here. And sometimes when you play around with your blocks, you can see images that will remind you of something, you know, and then yeah, you can take it from there. And so this is what I'm going to go with. So you play around with yours and see how you go. Now I'm going to sew these 2 together like this. Always remember front sides together. All right, now all of these blocks, the block measures 17.5. So I would advise you to do that. Measure your block so you know exactly what seam allowance you have to make preparation for. All right, now also be reminded that when you're making cushions, we want it to fit nice and snug. I don't like it fitting loose, so I like it fit nice and snug. So I reckon if we do it exactly 17 or just slightly beyond, we're okay. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room. All right, so I'm going to stitch front sides together, both of them, and then once we have done that, then we will flip them together, both together, and stitch them. All right, so this is going to be quite I wouldn't say easy, but you know, if you can't make a cushion, obviously it's not easy, is it? Nothing is easy until you know how to do it, you know, over and over again. And that's the beauty of learning. You know, you get to practice it, and yeah, you make it into your one. Let's see what this looks like if I put the white at the top here to the end, and see, and just have all of this there. Again, this looks pretty cool, and I'm happy with either one. I'm not too fussed, to be honest, so I think I'll go with this one. Keep it nice and simple. Right, so that's what I'm going to do. Get myself all organized and ready. I'm going to use white cotton for stitching this together, and just going to use an ordinary straight stitch. I would advise you to do a stitch length of about 2.5, and that way it stays nice and secure, because sometimes when you do it a little bit bigger, the stitches can be a little bit too loose. All right, so let's stitch these together. And you don't have to really worry about matching up any seams, but some of it may nest together depending on the squares that you have left from the quilt. So don't worry about that if it doesn't too much. Remember, these were obviously the extra left behind. So let's get these done. One down. Okay, and that's what we're looking at. So in this particular case, we haven't got any white next to each side, so whatever area, what side, sorry, you let the seams lay, it's entirely down to you. So you don't have to worry about that. So that's one bit down. I'm trying to get in the habit of putting it back where you picked it up, because trust me, the slightest little thing and you can get it confused and you have to spend time laying it all out again. So always pick up the block where you're meant to pick it up from and put it back in that missed place so that you don't get yourself confused, because these blocks can really trip you up. That's the aim of them. Trip you up, make you start all over again, and you can end up spending so much time moving blocks around trying to get the right pattern. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's your project, and however you mix it, it will look beautiful, I guarantee you. Don't get into the habit of just spending so much time, you know, moving blocks around, otherwise you won't get anything done. You can get really caught up in that. So I'm taking my 2 bits now and lay them front sides together, and I'm just going to match them up, make sure they're nice and even. And even if you need to trim down, go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to line it up, and I can see a little bit of mine just peeking out there, but I'm not going to worry about that because that's going to be lost on the inside. Onto the back stitch there, and let's move on. There you go. Just keep it all nicely lined up. And I was using the edge of my fabric as well as the edge of my presser foot to keep it nice and straight. And sewing straight in itself is an absolute chore. My students say to me, "Ma'am, how do you stay straight?" You know, so obviously then you have to go through the whole explanation of that for them. So that in itself is a task. But obviously there's tricks to every trade, and there's lines on the plate here. The marking lines lets you know how far apart you can be. And as long as you stay straight or keep your presser foot against those markings there, you will be fine. So this is what our block looks like. All right, so it looks pretty good at the moment. I'm really loving it. It's beautiful, and look at that, it's lined up really nicely in the middle there. So just take your time and do it. Right, so the next thing we need to do now is to get some batting and put it down here. So we're gonna sandwiches just as we will do a quilt. So you're gonna get your batting down, and then you're gonna get some backing. All right, now you would need some backing because obviously we're going to be quilting this. Now the backing is not going to be the end or the last layer for the envelope for the cushion cover. We're going to add another piece of fabric on top of that to make the proper cushion envelope. Okay, and I'll tell you why I'm calling it an envelope, because of this method. We can use, you know, stitch it all together and then force it in and then hand sew it, or we can use a zip, or we can use the envelope. And I love the envelope because it allows you to actually be able to wash your cushion covers or your pillow covers. All right, and even if I'm making pillows for the bed, I tend to use the same method as well because I love the objective to do that, and it's a lot more easier as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to doing our sandwiching method now, and we will go through to that. So get your fabric ready, get your batting ready, and then we can take it from there. Alright, so I have gone ahead and ironed my top for my covers, cushion covers, and again, try to get into the habit of following through the same procedure. Start from the back, lay your seams nice and flat, set your seams down, and then smoothen it at the top. Right? Once you've done that, I would say you need to then measure your backing fabric, and I have just gone probably about 1.5 inches all the way around so that I have this extra. All right, and I've done the same for my batting. Now I had leftover batting, and again I tried to use up things that's just around, so rather than open up a new pack for this, I had separate pieces, so I've actually just stitched it together and make sure it's nice and secure. All right, and I didn't do anything special. I just put it under the sewing machine and it flowed through quite easily. I did use my normal machine sewing foot with it. I didn't use a larger feed or anything like that. So it went through quite easily, so that wasn't a problem. Now, what we're going to do now, be preparing our sandwich to do the quilting, and that's important to support the machine at the back, because obviously we need to know our feed dogs, and this needs to be able to move smoothly on the little plate there. And of course you need to use our appropriate quilting foot for this. Now you can do two things. You can either spray baste, so you can use some 505 or some textile spray glue, and you spray it on the batting, not the backing fabric. All right, so it always goes on the batting, and what you do is smoothen it down. All right, so you will spray, put it over, and then smoothen it down. But because it's a small piece, I really wouldn't bother with using any basting glue for it. I'm just going to pin. So you're backing fabric down first, then you add your batting or wadding or whatever brand you use, as well as you put on top your quilt top. In this case, that's what we're going to call it. Obviously we know we are making a cushion cover here, and I'm just smoothing it out, and you notice I'm using from the middle and go all the way out to make sure it's nice and flat, and I've left myself some room around here. Now I'm just going to use some ordinary safety pins and pin it on. If you don't want to pin, what you can do is just, which I've done as well and it's worked pretty well, I've just done a sort of basting tack all the way around on the sewing machine using a very long stitch length, and that holds it nice as well. So you can do that. Either way, whatever works for you, and I think it's good to try things to see what what works for you on your machine, and that's the way of getting to know what your machine likes and what you like as well. And we all work differently, and it's key to remember that. So as much as I am giving you a visual example and talking you through it, just remember that we all learn differently, and we formulate things in our minds the way to work a lot more easily and simplistic for us. So I'm just going to go ahead and completely pin this. I'm not going to go crazy with it. I'm just putting it at the major points, i.e. around the square itself. I'm not going to bother with the middle. And when I start my quilting, I'm possibly going to start at the end and work my way around nicely. So I'm just going to pin here, and the purpose for the pinning, as I already said, is to ensure that this doesn't move, and this is so important. I mean, especially when you're working with a larger piece, to make sure that everything is stayed down really nicely and flat. Now, if it doesn't, what tends to happen is that you will get ripples in the back here. It will pleat, and so therefore when you're sewing, when you're quilting, you think everything is all beautiful at the top, but from the time you turn it around at the back, it's pleated. So it's a good idea to sometimes just check how things are going. And if you start from the middle, which is a good tip, I feel, if you start from the middle, you can work the pressures out. But what I have found is that sometimes with the pins you can tend to get pleats if you haven't taken that extra time to really flatten it out. Hence the reason why I like using the 505 or the textile glue, and I think for me that really works. So it does need a little bit of love and care at that point. You really need to take your time there. That is not a part to be rushed, because you don't want to ruin it. And trust me, if that happens, you get pretty annoyed with yourself. Ask me how I know this. Yeah, it happened. So there you go. And then you're left with the decision of, do I unpick it or do I leave it? And again, if it's really bothering you, unpick it. And there are times when I've sat there and unpicked, and my husband has said to me, I don't know how you can do this, but there you go. So this is my sandwich ready. So this is a quilt sandwich, and this is how you get it ready for quilting. So we're going to go over to the sewing machine now, and then we will start with some ideas of how we're going to quilt this. So a good idea before you start quilting is to make up a sample piece like this and just do some practice movement. Remember, when you're doing this, it's about memory movement, and the more often you do it, it comes a lot, obviously everything comes naturally to you. So just always, I always, regardless of what piece it is, whether it's something small or large, I always do a sample piece, and just to get my memory going again, and to sort of, you know, agree with myself what I want to do, because sometimes you do get bored doing one particular shape. But as I said, this is a small piece, so that shouldn't necessarily be a problem. So we're going to take this over to the machine, and then we will move on and do some quilting together. Okay, one thing before I wanted to mention before I actually went on to the sewing machine was thread color. And one of the ways in which I choose my thread color is to take them and just lay them on top. And so I wasn't sure which one to go with. I didn't want to go with white because sometimes obviously it doesn't always show up if you know, on the camera. So I looked at purple, and I've used this before, and it's almost, well, it's not almost finished, it's got a lot left still. And I thought of yellow, and I thought, oh, this looks really nice. So I'm just going to lay them out, and I don't want it to show up too much. I just really want just, you know, a little bit to show on the quilting. And then I thought of pink, and I quite like this pastel color. So I will do some sample stitching on my practice piece before I get started, and then I will choose. But I just wanted to share with you how I actually choose my color for my cotton. And I'm using Coats Moon polyester, and one of the reasons why I choose this is because it doesn't shed too much on the needle, and which is why I like this particular one. It's quite good. So yeah, so I think I will go, I'm not sure, I'm totally confused. I will do a sample piece and see. I mean, the pink looks very much like white thread on it at the moment. The purple stands out a lot, and I didn't really want it to take over. I think that's a little bit too strong, so I'm going to take that away. So I think I may go with the yellow. I think that will blend nicely on everything, and this one looks too much like white, so I'm going to take that away. I was really partial for this one, but I think I will go with this one. In terms of the bobbin, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day this backing is not going to be shown, but I'm just going to use plain white on it, so that's not a major issue. So what I usually, for me, when I'm doing my quilts, however, I usually choose the back threading to be the same color as the backing, so that it blends in nicely. I don't necessarily like it to stand out, so I like it always to be sort of blended into the fabric and not noticeable too much. So yeah, so that's what we're going to go with, and hopefully you've chosen yours, and we shall take it from there. Top is ready, and what we're going to do now is do the front, or I should say do the front and cover down the, to get ready for envelope back. So I have my 22-inch square fabric here for the back, and what you need to do is make sure that the front of your quilt top, I'm going to call it quilt top in this case, my cushion cover is facing me, so I can see all the prettiness of it, as well as the front side of the fabric goes together. All right, now to make the envelope, it's quite simplistic. We're going to just fold it here and bring it down. I'm just going to smoothen it out. I'm going to bring it down just 3/4 ways up from the top of my cushion front to the end there. Now if you wish, you can put a seam along there, all the way down there, and seam this together, but there's no need to do that because you're going to stitch it all the way around. So I'm just going to do that then. Make sure it's even. It's quite easy, and this is a relatively easy, simplistic way of doing this. Okay, So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to use some pins just to hold it in place there. And I'm pinning away from the edge of the square here. Yeah, I'm not pinning directly towards the end. I'm just holding it in place there, making sure it's nice and neat. Okay, now that's the front sides down. So remember, it's front side and you fold it in. Now the next part, you're going to do the same thing again, front sides down. You're going to bring it to the end there, so you have the two ends equal together. And again, you're going to fold this down again, but you're not going to fold it down till it goes beyond that one. So you're just going to go literally under the previous fold. You're going to go under the previous fold, and again you're going to pin all three layers together. And if you want to put, I'm just going to move mine so a touch down, just so that it's really right to the edge there. If you want to go beyond it and then trim it off, you're more than welcome to do so. Right, but it's still, my fold is still under my previous fold there. I'm just going to make it a little tiny bit smaller. There you go. And again, if you wanted to put a seam in there, you're more than welcome to do so. But I'm just going to pin all three together. Make sure it stays put. Oh, there's my pin. I was looking for my pin. I wonder, where did it disappear to? So I pin all these layers together in each area so it doesn't move on me. And that's it. So what you're going to do now is flip it over. I think one of my pins just dropped out there. Yes, it certainly did. And this is important because you want all of it to stay down flat. So you must pin it. I mean, if you don't want to pin, then just make sure it's well secured before you turn it over. So flip it over, and you're literally going to sew from this side all the way around. All right, you're going to sew from this side all the way around. I would say, because mine is already as it's 17-inch square, I'm just going to do a scant seam all the way around. Okay, and then I will show you what needs to do next. But the important thing here is to make sure that the wrong side of the fabric is facing you once you completed this part here. So you should see the wrong side, and all of the front sides should be facing together. So let's go now, flip it on the back side, and then or stitch all the way around the square. Over to the cutting board. Again, you need your ruler and your rotary cutter. So I'm going to remove the pins so I don't break my blade. Check that all the pins are removed, because sometimes you can just simply forget. Right, okay, I've got one more in there, but I want to take it out once I turn it right sides round. So again, line it up edge to edge and trim it down just like you did previously, because we need to get rid of that bulk. We don't really need all of this now, it's just excess. Okay, that's that. So we come to the side here. I think I've got some pins, so I've got to be very careful. So this is what envelope method is. Take that one out. I know there's another one in there. The amount of times I've forgotten and I pierce myself. Get fingers right into the corner. Now if you feel that you have bulk in the corner there, you can actually trim it down, but mine is quite thin, so I'm not going to worry about that. And pull it all the way through. And of course make sure that you poke every area out. And one of the good things about this method is that it's so much more easier. It's a lot more neater. And that's it. So, and that is it completed. That's what it looks like. And of course you've got your beautiful cushion at the front here. All of your quilting actually shows, and the back is nice and secure. And as I said, if you wanted to seam that, you could, but I didn't see the point in it because it's actually tucked away in there. So that's one done. We've got another one to make, and with this particular one, I thought we will do a piecing. So I've got some more of the other fabric left, so I was just going to piece this together. The white there, again, this is all spare fabric, and then this was some of the actual backing from the quilt. Put that there, as well as do the last bit on top there. So I'm going to piece all of this together, and then I will show you what the both of them looks like. So I have completed these cushion covers. I've laid the quilt out, just a reminder of what actually we were doing. So remember, we had 6 blocks left over from making our quilt. Okay, and let me show you what I did with them. So if you can take a closer look at this one here, we used the 4 blocks and we joined them together, and you can see there's the 4 blocks here. So we're making 17-inch pillow form pillow cushions. All right, and I did a meander pattern of forward C's and backward C's, but I used a little bit of peaks on them just to give it a little bit more edge on the quilting. So hopefully you can see the quilting there that's standing out. And I also used a very light yellow color, so it wasn't very bright. I didn't want it to take over the quilting. On the other one, I just used 1 block here, and I did some piecing with some left over of the 5-inch squares on both sides. And I also had some left over as well from the borders, because remember we had this border as a 6-inch and that was a 3-inch border. On the top here I use a quilting pattern of leaves with loop-de-loops and some flowers. I also added a little bit of pebbles at the top there as well, and I did it the same thing for the bottom. So they look quite uniform. I mean, to be honest, but out of both of them, I prefer this one a lot more. I just like the fact that it has the 1 block and it's different piecing throughout it, and it really blends in with the quilt. Obviously, they both do. So I think that comes to the end of our tutorial this week, and I hope that you actually share with me which one you actually prefer, and that'll be great to hear from you. So if you're enjoying our tutorials and you like what we're learning and teaching together, please like, subscribe, and share. Hit that bell so that you know when you get that notification that another video has been uploaded. So I look forward to seeing you again, and happy quilting. Bye-bye. Alright, so I have gone ahead and ironed my top for my covers, cushion covers, and again, try to get into the habit of following through the same procedure. Start from the back, lay your seams nice and flat, set your seams down, and then smoothen it at the seams nice and flat, set your seams down, and then smoothen it.